Hey, nature photographers, it's Lee Hoy, and I'm very excited about this video because it's probably the last topic you would ever expect to hear regarding nature photography. But I'm going to tell you, in my own personal experience, it is probably the most underrated thing as I've watched clients, other photographers in the field often struggling to do what they would really like to do. So the person you see on the screen has become very important in my life, even though I've only got to talk to him in person a couple of times. This is Dean Pullman, and Dean is, I don't know, Dean, what do you like? You like Founder, El Jefe, the Grand Poobah, the guru
The
of
dude on the
Manflow
yoga
Yoga.
videos.
Huh?
Dude on the yoga videos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude on the
You're
yoga.
that yoga guy. That's what I
Yeah,
was
he's the
called
yoga
at an
guy.
airport a
You
couple
know what?
weeks ago.
He's the guy that pushes me through videos to the point where there's times we all scream, "Just be quiet, Dean!" But then we all know that what he's doing is actually great for us. So, why in the world would I have the founder of Manflow Yoga on a video about nature photography? Well, remember my video from last week that I told you I waited a while to do on purpose, which was my formula for nature photography success, and that is preparation plus skill times patience equals luck. And if you remember when I described skill, there were four considerations. There was equipment considerations, there were technical considerations, there were creative considerations, and then there were personal considerations. Well, under personal considerations is physical health. And in order to do great wildlife, landscape, night sky, macro photography, macro photography requires an incredible amount of core strength. You're bent over, often on your knees, trying not to spook a bug or a snake or a frog, and you're trying to hold still. We want to hold our camera still. In wildlife photography, we're holding these big, heavy lenses. Landscape, you're often peering down low and kneeling down through a camera on a tripod. And you're looking at a guy who for many years would have made fun of yoga. And then I bought a book and it completely began to change my life. So, right after this intro, join me as I get to interview Dean about the importance of yoga in everyday's life. Howdy from West Texas. I'm Lee Hoy, professional nature photographer, and this is my YouTube channel, Lee Hoy Photography. I'm an OM System Ambassador, photography workshop instructor for Wildside Nature Tours and Precision Camera and Video, and contributing author for the Journal of Wildlife Photography.
Cool.
So, how did I come across Manflow Yoga? Well, I was on a little trip to Ruidoso, going to see my aunt, and there was a Blue Lotus yoga store there. Went in, and believe it or not, there was a book called Manflow Yoga or Yoga for Men. I can't. Which title is it, Dean?
That's gonna be this guy.
Yeah, show me that. Show them that. Yeah,
Yoga
Yoga
fitness for
Fitness
men.
for Men. Well, I kind of was close. I had yoga and men, and otherwise that was off. So, guys, that book I
Close
will
enough.
have down in the link below on the video description because I bought that book. I was sitting in Cloudcroft at my Airbnb and I began to look through it and I thought, ooh, you know what? When it comes to doing photography and doing my career, I didn't want to deal with injuries like when I did CrossFit, hardcore, lifting heavy. And I began to look through this book and think, you know what? This guy is on to something very powerful. So I began to practice Manflow yoga, and the difference in gains in strength and flexibility was incredible. So, Dean, what I'd like for you, because I'm just going to tell you all right now, I consider this guy an absolute guru at building a fitness program that can take somebody from any level of fitness. I mean, I don't care if you're 150 pounds overweight. I know the pictures you see online about yoga, they're very misleading. I know you think there's no way you could lay on your back and grab your feet. The way this guy's developed the program, you don't have to. Dean, take a minute and tell them how you originally came up with the idea for Manflow Yoga.
Sure. Well, first off, that's a very generous description. I would not call myself a guru, but I do create programs and workouts that I do that with in mind what I experienced when I was first starting to do yoga as a guy who was, inflexible and interested in the fitness focus side of yoga. So I started Manful Yoga because I wanted more guys to like yoga. I had been doing yoga for um, probably a couple months. I had actually attended a yoga studio. My first one was on accident. I was going to the tailor, had to get some pants hemmed, and I stumbled into a yoga studio while looking for the tailor. And I had always wanted to try it, but I hadn't yet, probably because the same reasons why most men don't want to do yoga, right? I thought it was too feminine. I thought it was I didn't want the spiritual aspects, and I didn't think it was a great workout. And halfway through that class, I was totally drenched in sweat. I was working on weaknesses that I didn't even know I had. And I was like, I got to do this more. So I kept going, and I noticed how much stronger I was getting, how much more flexible I was getting, how much better my body felt. I had a lot more breath and body awareness, which until you actually get it, you're like, oh, this is really cool to be much more aware of my breathing and my body. Um, it wasn't without my frustrations. I was, the only guy in the yoga room, which was, I guess depending on the setting, it could have been. I wasn't like I wasn't surrounded by the time I was a horny 22-year-old, so I wasn't surrounded by just like dimes, right? I wasn't surrounded by a room full of beautiful women. So I guess that could have been. I'm getting off the point of the story right now. Um, but anyways, I was there to work out, and being the only guy in the room, and understanding the differences in flexibility between men and women, it was kind of frustrating that I didn't know how deep I should be going. I also didn't really know about the proper technique, and the spiritual side for me was just I had grown up as an athlete. I was an athlete at the time. I played collegiate lacrosse for the
Okay.
University of Wisconsin. And it was just kind of weird that there were spiritual aspects in a workout for me. I just wasn't used to that. Um, so I thought, this could be really good for men, but I wonder if there's another, like, maybe there's a brand of yoga that's like more fitness focused and for men. So I went looking and there really wasn't one, which was kind of shocking to me. I'm like, this is a really good workout, but men aren't doing this because of the way it's presented. And so I started a YouTube channel. I started uploading workouts there. Um, and then eventually it became my full-time job. Yeah, eventually it just became my full-time job. And it wasn't like it snowballed. It was a very slow, gradual process. But today it's a mission. We are helping men reclaim their fitness. We're helping men get more comfortable in their bodies, and we're also helping them embrace health as a whole. We're going beyond just physical. We're helping them with their mental wellness. We're helping them with their stress levels, helping them sleep better, making smarter health decisions with their nutrition. It's Yeah, so it's really cool to see, how this has evolved and what it is. But that's my story. That's the brief, abbreviated
Yeah.
version there.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you had no idea how big this thing would blow up when you started, but congratulations on having a vision and moving towards it. And I know for me how awesome it's been for me. So now you mentioned a lot in the workouts,
hmm
why you're posing us or having us do certain things because of the differences between men and women. But I don't want women to tune out thinking that man flow yoga can't be extremely beneficial for them. So talk a little bit about those differences. And I think one time I heard you say that like 25% of your customers are women, and I know my percentage might be off, so
hmm
rectify that if you need to.
Yeah, so there's probably 10. I would, based on surveys, based on interactions, emails, just looking at names, about 10% of our
Like
customers are
10%.
women,
Cool.
and they appreciate mindful yoga because of the non-spiritual approach. So they're just looking for a more fitness-focused approach. They're also, like a lot of men, they're looking at it as a way to potentially replace strength training because
Mhm.
mindful yoga does have, the part of the approach is that it is much more focused on strength
Yeah.
than traditional yoga. There's a lot more isometric strengthening. So think planks, side planks, squat holds, chair holds, things that you would do in a physical therapy setting, but integrated into the flow of a yoga workout. So, a lot of women also appreciate the approach. And so, yeah, we have more than, it's not just men, it's women too.
Yeah. Now, when you develop programs, because on whether it's on the app, one thing I love, guys, about Manflow Yoga is I can get on my laptop, I can connect to a smart TV. There's an app for a lot of smart TVs, not all, but a lot. I can get on my phone, my iPad, and access Manflow Yoga. And Dean's developed a lot of different programs. Some of them are pretty hardcore strength, some are for beginners. Dean, why don't you talk about what you think, for so someone sitting out there, they're in nature photography, they've never sat on a yoga mat. Most of what we see is very intimidating. Why don't you introduce us to just pick a few of your programs you developed that you go, this would be a great program for some of those folks.
Yeah, so when I design a program, I kind of sit down and I think about who is this going to be for? And I go through and maybe I'll look through at comments of workouts that are already in my app, already in the members area. I'll think of emails that I've received. I'll think of specific customers that I already know, and I'll picture them like if they were to get on a yoga mat with me. So if I were to, I don't do one-on-one lessons anymore. I probably stopped doing that in 2019. But if I were to work one-on-one with them, what would I have them do? How would I help them to start from zero and get to a point where they were experiencing less or no pain in their back or their knees, starting to fix their posture if they spend a lot of time, hunched over, in this case, hunched over in a position waiting to get the right shot for, maybe hours,
Yeah.
if that's the case. And so I kind of peel it back from there and I think, okay, well, what are the poses that I'd want to put in here? What are the things that are going to help them with this particular pain point that they have or lack of flexibility or mobility or strength. And then I kind of list all of the poses. And I also say, well, in this pose, because you could do yoga poses in so many different ways. You could do the same pose and make it really restorative or easy, or you could take a pose and make it very challenging and isometric and demanding. So not only are you choosing the poses, I'm also going through and choosing what do I want to focus on in the poses. So that just gives you, that's kind of a look into the process of making it. But from that, I've created, I think I have over 40 programs, and I've also created a program progression for people so that they can move from one program to the next. So if you've never done yoga before, if you're a guy, um, and so a program made for guys in their 50s and 60s with a lower baseline of physical fitness is called Absolute Beginners. So that one starts at, it's just 15 minutes per day, it's 3 days per week. And a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the poses are focused on encouraging you to keep doing it, to do the best you can, to modify the pose accordingly. So if you can't do it at this level, then here's how you're going to do it to build up to it. So that's the first program, and then from there we go into beginners fundamentals. So the workouts go up to 30 minutes. At this point, you've got a bit more familiarity with the poses. Maybe your flexibility has developed a little bit. You know, in there we're pushing strength a little bit more. We're holding the poses a little bit longer. We're starting to do maybe some more. It's still beginner poses, but maybe starting to insert some poses that you couldn't do a couple months ago. So, there's a progression that I give with people. And the third program that we go to, since you asked for three programs,
Yeah.
is the breath series. And I really like this one because it teaches people how to use their breath because most people have never practiced breathing and applied it to physical fitness. And so this is a really cool program because we teach you, one workout is breathing for your back, one workout is breathing for your core, one of them is breathing for stress relief. So you learn how you can use your breathing with your fitness and how you can actually target, how can I use my breathing to make my back more flexible? Or how can I use my breathing to develop more core strength? And for a lot of people, this is the first time they've ever focused on breathing and they realize, oh wow, my breathing has such an impact on these things. I had no idea. So I think that gives you a pretty good idea of
Yeah.
programs
And you talk a lot about make during the whole time you're talking about breathing through your nose. And as a
mhm.
photographer, I get photographers that are holding their breath and I'll see that or I can tell it and I'll say breathe, breathe because most people don't think that if you actually learn how to breathe correctly, you can actually be more still than in holding your breath. Talk just briefly about the benefits of learning to breathe deep and through your nose versus when you're tired and gasping through your mouth. Talk about those benefits real quick.
Yeah, so breathing, if you are breathing in and out of your nose, that means that, and you're able to maintain that slow controlled breathing in and out of your nose, that means that you're putting your body through less stress. So one indication, if you are having to resort to breathing out of your mouth, that probably means that you're putting a lot of stress on your body because you're kind of taking it up to a higher gear, so to speak, or so to speak, with your breathing. So if you can keep your breathing in and out of your nose, that means that you are putting less strain on your body. So it's kind of like a barometer of how much strain are you putting on your body. So from that perspective, it's a good idea just to make sure that you're holding yourself in a position where you can just easily breathe in and out of the nose so you're not pushing yourself too much. But breathing in and out of the nose also helps to facilitate the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest or digest state, versus the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight, flight, or freeze response. So when you can control your breathing, you're basically telling your body, hey, it's okay. We don't need to freak out. And that allows you to stay calm, stay relaxed, and stay focused. So. Yeah, I mean
That's important.
that's why we breathe in and out of the nose, and as you start to get, as you start to push yourself, you have that tendency to, okay, I want to breathe out of my mouth now because it makes it easier. But if you can continually breathe in and out of the nose, it keeps you just at a kind of at a lowered, heightened, just keeps you more in control.
And that is hugely beneficial for photography. I need you guys out there to understand you cannot underestimate the difference in photography doing this program or any of the programs that I've been doing. And I started out with absolute beginner this time, and then I went to beginner fundamentals, and now I'm doing flex 90 days to flexibility, which ramps it up a little bit.
Hmm.
And I can tell you that the balance improvement helps my photography. The breathing, the core strength radically improves my photography. With the way he has you work your shoulders, hope means I can hold my bigger lenses longer and steadier. I
Hmm.
don't I cannot overplay the difference it's made in my photography as I've been doing it. So when I want to talk about the benefits for me, you guys, I'm short, I'm stocky. I've got 200 to 300 tumors on my body that can be challenges. I in Brazil just a couple of weeks ago, I was able to slide as low as I could off my seat in a boat with one leg out to the side, another leg beneath me. Before my tumors, my legs would have gone numb. I'd have had to change positions, probably maybe disturbing our jaguar or rocking the boat and messing up other people's images. I was then able to lean over the side because of the oblique strength that Dean builds by having you do the side planks, standing bends. And you know what's awesome about this man flow yoga program that he's developed? You if and it's really hard to injure yourself unless you have a pre-existing condition or you really push it too far, you do something silly. Dean is constantly advising you on how to take it a step at a time. So the benefits for me have been massive. Dean, I want you to talk about what are some of the typical struggles you see in terms of men and women in terms of tightness, muscle weakness, back pain, neck pain. The big one for me, Dean, is I had some back pain before, and you hear about people have back surgeries and they're never better, and it's often worse. And I've always throughout my life, my hip flexors have been tight. And you talk about the real causes of back pain and how people tend to want to do a complete fold forward to deal with back pain. I don't have any back pain anymore at all, including wearing my belt over some of my tumors, jumping out of the back of my pickup in boots. And it's all because of things that I never thought. Talk about some of these things for a minute.
Yeah, so I think the biggest one that people struggle with is back pain. Part of that is just I mean, the biggest part of that is we live sedentary lifestyles, meaning we're not very active. We don't move for our jobs. We sit in chairs when we're, at home or we're at work. We sit in chairs when we're traveling, when we're driving, when we're on a plane, and we just don't move that much. And when you're sitting, you are tightening up your hips, your core is weakening. You are, your back is overstretching. So, and then when you start to stand up, the only thing that's been active really is your quadriceps and your knees. So you probably get too much. And then, so what happens then is your knees start to hurt because your knees are doing all the work that your core and your hips should be doing. Hips are the biggest muscle in your body, your core, incredibly important. So when you're not using those muscles properly, that means that there's back pain and it means that there's knee pain. So a lot of what I try to do with my programming, my workouts, is to just focus on those areas that we all know are going to be weak as a result of living in the modern world, right? So lack of hip strength, lack of hip flexibility, lack of spinal mobility, and lack of core strength. Those are the four things that cause back pain. And so when you start to work on these things on a consistent basis, you're getting to the root cause of that pain. So when you can build strength, when you can build flexibility, when you can get those muscles to be more active, then you start to address the root causes of that really common joint pain. So a lot of it is just focused on let's undo the effects of sitting.
And they follow up on that. I mean, I had a question there about what is the biggest challenge people face with mobility, flexibility, strength, and
Mm.
body development. And then based on, what you say in the videos and here, it's just the fact that people tend to sit so much, isn't it? Is that the biggest challenge?
Right. Yeah. So people are just, you're fighting in many ways, you're fighting sometimes you're fighting a losing battle because, you're doing yoga because you're trying to undo it. But then, a lot of people just go right back to sitting. So the more that you sit, the less that you move, the harder it is to undo that. So, people have issues with flexibility in their hips. Like you said, they have tight hip flexors, they have tight hamstrings, but a lot of people think that they just have tight hamstrings and they don't realize that they also have tight inner thighs, tight outer thighs, tight glutes. You have an overstretched back because you're sitting and your back is in a rounded position instead of going through a neutral position or an arched position with your spine. So you're just not in your twist. You're not twisting with your spine. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things there that just aren't happening in terms of getting the full range of motion of how your body evolved to move. And then a lot of it is also getting people to understand how to activate certain muscles. A lot of people, you say like squeeze your glutes, they don't know how to squeeze their glutes. Or if you say squeeze your abs, they don't know how to squeeze their abs because they just don't have that control over their muscles. So a lot of what we do is very muscle activation focused, getting you to understand, oh, that's what those muscles are. Let me squeeze those muscles. Let me get those muscles to turn on. And then when you start to then when you go into the workout or go into more full body movements, then you're actually recruiting your glutes and your core when you're doing squats or when you're doing lunges. When you're going for a walk, you start to notice, oh, those are my glutes. Let me use my glutes while I walk. Let me squeeze my abs while I'm walking. And that helps you kind of instead of contributing to an imbalanced system, building upon weaknesses, now we're building strength in the way that your body is supposed to build strength. But you have to do something to get your body from, okay, I've been sitting and these muscles aren't active to, okay, these muscles are stretched now, the right muscles are active. Now I can effectively exercise or move my body.
All right, awesome. Now, let me ask you this question. I want you to address some of the misconceptions or assumptions that people have about yoga. And you've mentioned a couple of them, but that you hear. What are some of the things that you hear or have seen? And go ahead and repeat some of them that you may have already discussed a little bit, but and how people could overcome those.
I mean, I don't. A lot of the misconceptions that people hear about yoga are true. Maybe it's not an effective workout. Maybe you do have to be flexible to do it. It is spiritual, right? So these are all things that like no, all those things are true depending on the yoga class that you're going to.
Yes.
However, there are many different types of yoga classes. Like I could look around and maybe I could find a studio. Maybe I could find a particular yoga instructor who does have a class that's really fitness focused, where the poses last long enough where you can take the time you need to actually work deeper into the flexibility, where it's not as much focus on chakras and more focused on proper technique. But the reality is that most traditional yoga is a spiritual thing. It's I won't say it's spiritual. I'll kind of say like quasi spiritual. It's like partly spiritual. There's also not a lot of focus on technique because the instructors are more about providing an experience
Mm,
rather than,
great.
it's not, yes, it could be an effective workout, but I feel like a lot of yoga is meant to be an experience. Um, and then, a lot of most people who are going to yoga classes, 80% of people going to yoga classes are women. Women are more flexible than men. And a lot of people gravitate toward yoga if they're naturally more flexible because they feel better about doing it. So, that just means that a lot of the classes, even if they're beginner friendly, they're just going to expect some sort of baseline level of flexibility. I will say that depending on where you're going, if you're going to like a more metropolitan area where, if it's like, let's say it's like Dallas or let's say it's, Austin or New York, or Chicago. I'm just naming big cities.
Mhm.
But if you go to these areas and you go to a yoga class, you are more likely to find more men in the class, and maybe the instructor is a bit more familiar with men. But yoga is still very much a female dominated, um, a female dominated discipline, and that's fine. But that's also why I created, Manful Yoga because I wanted to create the yoga that would be more appropriate for the guy who is more interested in fitness and isn't as flexible as, a typical yoga class would require.
Yeah, yeah, good. All right. Let's say someone at this point says, "Yeah, Lee, I understand what you and Dean have been saying, the benefits of this, and not just for photography. I mean, I'm here to talk about it for photography, but for life in general."
Hmm.
And they say, "Okay, what gear do I really need?" And I like because you talk about, yeah, it'd be nice to have this yoga gear, but if you don't use this, why don't you talk about both those options? And in particular, Dean, guys, if y'all don't see to our left of Dean, you can see some of the Manflow yoga products, which are available on Amazon and through the Manflow Yoga website and whatnot. So, and I have all those. I didn't start with those. I will tell you what I think is really good about one of those particular. Well, actually, two of them. I love them all. But Dean, talk about the gear, both official yoga stuff and non-official.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is you don't need the gear in order to do the workout. You just need about 12 square feet of space, which is not that much space. We're not going to be doing shuttle runs, right? We're not running from one end of the room to the other. You're
Yeah.
moving on a mat. So there's not a lot of space required. You don't need the yoga mat. If you're traveling, you can just throw down a towel from your hotel room. You can use a towel for a strap. That's the other piece of equipment that we use. You could also use a dog leash. You could use I don't know. I
Belt.
guess you could rip
You've
you could
talked
rip a
about
t-shirt
belts.
if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a,
Yeah.
a belt. Don't rip up a t-shirt, I guess. And then for blocks, sometimes we use blocks. I like using blocks because it helps you modify the poses to fit your flexibility levels instead of you pushing yourself into a flexibility level that you're not ready for. The block allows you to do the pose as it applies to your current mobility levels. So instead of blocks, you could use a stack of books. If you're in a hotel room, you can flip the wastebasket upside down and then just use that. You could use a coffee table. So you really don't need equipment. That's what you can use to get started. And then if you do a few
Now,
workouts and you're like, this is fine, but yeah.
it's better. Let me talk, Dean, one particular difference about the blocks that people can see to your right or left. Guys,
Hmm.
you'll notice he has two different heights. There's what you would call the normal size yoga blocks that you'll see that
Oh yeah,
size all
let
over.
me go grab
Yeah,
them.
would you go grab one, Dean, while I'm talking to him about it? And then he has these taller blocks. Now I have both, and I often joke that I have T-Rex arms. So I have shorter arms. Now, as my flexibility and strength improves, I've started using the shorter ones. But Dean, show them that. You see that difference, guys? If you're a heavy set guy or short armed or short in general, I highly recommend getting both. And Dean, am I getting any money for any of this from you? No, none whatsoever. I am here to
Give
promote
me your
this.
Venmo. Send you 20 bucks.
So apparently I'm coming into some big money soon. No,
Woo!
I'm talking
Lunch.
about this because of the difference it makes. So for me, now if you're naturally lean and long armed, you may not need the taller ones, but for a lot of us, that taller block has made a huge difference because Dean will emphasize the importance of doing it correctly versus as deep as possible. Okay. If you do it correctly, the deepness you'll be able to achieve, the flexibility will grow. So I really like both. And I don't know that I've ever seen the taller blocks anywhere else. And Dean's are cork, they're durable. They're a little heavier. So if you want to travel with them like on an airplane, yeah, the foam ones are a little better, but they just don't last as long. So I have both. In fact, you can see mine. Whoops, wrong direction. See, I'm not lying.
No,
There they
that
are,
looks
right
nice.
behind me, baby. I have them both along with his strap. His strap is a little shorter than some of the others I find, which I like. They're plenty long for my long arms. But Dean, you talked about a towel instead of a mat, but I have both a traditional kind of yoga mat, the more spongy, and then you have this thicker, heavier cork mat. Talk a little bit about those differences.
Yeah, so some yoga mats are too most yoga mats for a guy are kind of comically small, especially if you're over a certain height. So, I'm only 5'10", and for me getting on a standard yoga mat, my hands usually come off. Just it's
Mhm.
not wide enough. A standard yoga mat is 18 inches wide and 60 inches long. So, that's not a lot of space if you're a bigger guy or a taller woman as well. So, the size is something that we made that's different about it. So instead of say 18 inches wide, I think it's 20. can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's 20,
It's pretty
22
wide.
inches wide, 20, maybe 24 inches wide.
Yeah, it's wide.
Um, it's significantly wider, and then it's also significantly longer. It's actually a full 10 inches longer than a standard yoga mat. So there's a lot of extra length there. But what's really important is the density and the firmness of the cushion, the padding. So if you have a yoga mat where it's too cushioned, it's going to be really difficult to balance on it. You're also going to notice you're kind of wobbly. It's not going to feel very secure. The same time, if you have a yoga mat that's too thin, it's going to be really uncomfortable when you put your knees down on the ground for something like a lunge or if you're doing like a kneeling pose. It's just going to hurt your knees. And there's no benefit to putting your kneecaps on the ground and developing pain there. There's just not. So there's no benefit to having toughness there. So what we did with the mat is we made it thicker but supportive. So it's a nice blend of cushion and support. It's not so it's not spongy, so it's not going to make it difficult for you to balance on, but it also does provide a nice level of support. So if you are going to put your knee down, then it doesn't hurt when you do it. So, and then we also have a cork surface, which is non-slip. It's antimicrobial, so it's easier to clean. It's a yeah, it's no, it's just it's a really cool mat that we designed specifically for, guys who need a bigger mat and people who are interested in the fitness aspects of yoga. A lot of yoga mats are kind of slippery. They don't have grip. So this one allows your feet to kind of lock into place so that you can go deeper into the poses without fear of slipping.
That's
We
right.
like to say like sliding is fun, but not on a yoga mat.
That's true. That's true. Now, there's one other product you have that we haven't talked about. Let me grab mine real quick. And,
Hmm.
and early on, usually, I'll use this for a while, but I'll get to where I don't need it. But he also has this knee pad, and it's
Hmm.
great. I keep it next to my mat, and for certain poses, I just throw it under my knees because I don't want. There is no benefit, as he said, to just causing pain in your
Hmm.
knees. So, guys, particularly if you're heavier set, or you just know that kneeling on a hard surface, I have a wood floor here in my house. I have a very small area right here where I do my yoga. And that makes all the difference. I can focus on doing the pose correctly instead of, ooh, my kneecap's hurting and then getting in a bad
Hmm.
position. So Dean didn't mention that, and but I am going to because honestly, for a lot of guys, it's very important. And again, he'll tell you if you don't want to buy that, just have an old. I saw him use his dog's towel one time in a video. I mean, a
Hmm.
towel, a t-shirt, something just to give you a little
Yep.
cushion. Why did I get that? You know why? Because that's nice and square. I can pack it in a bag easy, and it's
So we actually do hear about people using those as travel mats. So if
yes.
you can fit it into a bag, then people are using those as travel yoga mats.
That's cool. That's very cool. I love it. It's a
Yeah.
great product. Okay, so Dean, I sent you some pictures, and folks, I'll throw those up here in the video so that you can see them.
Hmm.
I sent Dean a series of pictures of me in particular photography poses,
All
and
right.
I was just going to ask him to show one or two things that he would say to address. And the first image I sent him is of me, and you guys can see this picture. I'll throw it right up here holding my big 150 to 400 lens. You see my shoulders are forward, a little bit hunched. I don't know. I think my posture is pretty good there, Dean. But the reality is arms forward, holding some heavy weight out in front of the face. So, Dean, one or two quick things that you'd say this will help counter doing that over long periods of time.
So I would say two things. So first off, when you've got your arms out in front of you like that, and this isn't to say that you shouldn't have your arms out in front of you because your body's going to
Sure.
do things. It's not about like avoiding certain things, but countering them is a good idea. So instead of having your arms out in front of you, what I would have you do either beforehand or later on, because you can do either or. You can use it kind of as a prep beforehand, or you can do it after the fact to kind of reverse it so to speak. You would bring your hands behind your back. You would hold a strap behind your back with your palms facing your body. And this is called, I call this hands behind the back or fingers interlaced behind the back. Just depending on flexibility levels, maybe you can interlace your hands together. Most likely you can't. So what you'd probably do is hold a strap behind your back with your hands about shoulder width apart. And then you'd work on squeezing your arms away from your back and really getting your chest open, right? So you're kind of doing the exact opposite of what you would do when your arms are out in front of you like that. The second thing that I would have you do is just to develop stability in that endurance and in that position is to work on your balance, work on practicing balance or work on practicing lower body endurance. So something like a chair pose would be really good for just developing that ability to, have endurance in your legs and stay in the position without getting to the point where you're fatigued and have to give up, or just standing on one leg. So literally just standing on one leg. I would call this a one leg standing balance. You would stand on one leg, you would bring the other knee up in the air, and you would just hold there and stay as still as you can while squeezing the muscles in your legs. So those are the three poses that I would give you for
Reduce
that
that.
situation.
Yeah, Dean has through his programs, I've developed a lot of shoulder and back strength, and a lot of yoga poses. The arms go up and high and whatnot. But Dean talks about goalpost arms, and guys, my
Hmm.
flexibility in my shoulders has improved dramatically. And he walks you through it so that, and he'll keep repeating it because our mind, we're thinking about five different things, and he walks you through it in such a way that makes it really easy to remember. Now, the next picture, Dean, that you have there in front of you, and guys, you can see it up here in the corner is rounded back. I'm on my knees in the Galapagos Islands. I'm photographing some Espanola mockingbirds there. And so a lot of times our back is kind of hunched over when we're
Hmm.
doing macro or low subjects like this. So, Dean, to help counter that, what are just a couple of things you do to help people because their backs are rounded a lot?
Yeah. And you're standing, are you standing here
I'm
crouching?
kneeling. I'm kneeling.
You're kneeling. Okay, so kneeling, hunched over. Okay, so what I would have you do is I would get you into standing back bend for this position. So it also depends on maybe your legs are tired though. So two options. Standing back bend is going to be you're standing upright with good posture, and then you're just doing a very slight back bend. So you're putting your spine into an arched position and you're working on getting your chest to face up. So just a little bit of a back bend, not trying to go as far back as you can and just letting your body fall back, but going into a really strong controlled back bend to counter that rounded position. And the second option would be doing a cobra. So instead of doing a standing back bend, this would be a back bend that's done from a prone position where you're lying on your chest. And so both of these things are going to help with countering that rounded position of the spine, but it also makes your body more tolerant of being in that position. So it makes your muscles stronger, and that's going to help you with just being able to tolerate that rounded position for a longer time.
Okay. And the third position is kneeling with your camera out in front of you, but now you're kneeling. One leg is down, another leg is up. Sometimes put our elbows on our knees for support. But again, you're hunched over, but you're kneeling now. And,
Mhm.
I obviously think you do a lot of it where we're kneeling on our mats. What are a few of them you'd recommend for that?
All right, so kneeling, hunched over. Kneeling, hunched over. If I'm kneeling, hunched over. All right, so I'm on the
Well, and it would
ground.
be
My
good
hips are
though,
there.
like how you talk about when we're doing certain poses, we really shouldn't be hunched over. We should be like this, but a lot of photographers, because they don't have the strength, are more
Hmm.
hunched over. But if you wanted to get someone where they could kneel in a good, proper position, nice tight core, ready to photograph, what would that be?
Well, actually, side plank is coming to mind as a good pose to help you just develop that core strength to kind of stay
Mhm.
upright. And why I also chose side plank instead of a traditional plank is because it's also helping you to strengthen your upper back. When you have a plank, but you're doing what's often called a center plank, where your arms, both hands are planted, think the top of a push-up position, that's good for core strength, but it is bringing your arms in that round, in that forward position and you're already doing a lot of that, right? So I want to help you target your upper back, not only to kind of counter that imbalance, but also because when you strengthen your upper back, that's going to help support your shoulders. So instead of you relying only on your arms to hold that heavy camera, right now we've got the upper back working a little bit, which is going to help support. Are there common, do photographers often get overuse injuries in their rotator cuff or in their maybe
A
golfer's
lot, I would
elbow
say I
or
see a lot, particularly of older, smaller ladies.
uh-huh.
There's a lot of wrist, hand pain,
Yeah.
sometimes elbow pain, and
Mhm.
certainly necks get really tight because instead of bringing the camera back in a good position, we tend to hold it out in front, particularly on a
Okay.
tripod, and move the head forward.
Yeah. So strengthening the shoulders is going to help support the chain moving down, right? So if you have stronger shoulders, there's going to be less strain on your elbows, less strain on your wrists. So think of like just instead of having two guys show up to lift something, you're bringing a third guy to help out. So it's just going to make it easier on those other parts of the body. So that would be my recommendation for that, which is it's a strength focused pose. So, maybe afterwards, maybe after the fact when you're like, okay, I'm sore of this position, then I think a child's pose would be a good position just because you're getting your arms overhead, you're stretching out your shoulders. Instead of being in a kneeling position, you're going into fully bending your knees as much as possible. So, um, and you're also getting your spine into a nice supported position. So I would say a child's pose would be kind of the way to recover from that.
Yeah. You know, I looked at pictures of child's poses before I ever did yoga, and I thought, oh, you're just sitting there relaxing. I'm getting very close, but I'm still not where I can completely feel no stretching, nothing while in a child's pose. There's always, particularly in my hips, deep inside of my hips, I actually feel
Mm,
my shoulders when we first began, and you'd say, put a block down and raise your arms a little higher. Oh, mother of God, man, and now that's no problem. My back actually feels relaxed. Now it's inside of my thighs that are getting there, and I feel pretty good. I mean, it's getting a lot better, but it's amazing how quickly our body goes to not being flexible, not having some core strength, but how quickly you can heal it with what Manflow Yoga does. Now, the next
mm,
picture, Dean, I'm sitting in a safari vehicle
okay.
and there's some lions off to the side. So I'm holding my camera, but instead of facing forward, I'm rotated sideways. So, my legs are forward, body is twisted. And, this morning you had us on the one I did deer pose, which,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, that kind of stuff has helped me tremendously. But you have several different, exercises, poses that are about twisting and whatnot. So sitting in a
Hmm.
boat, a vehicle, and then twisting to one side. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so those twisting movements are something that we don't normally do a lot of in day-to-day life, right? We're usually fixed forward. If you're on a computer, you're looking straight ahead. You're watching TV, you're looking straight ahead. You're in a car, you're looking straight ahead. So, developing strength and rotation can be, not just good for functionally from a photographer standpoint, but also just important for keeping your back healthy. So, one pose that comes to mind is side angle is a really good pose for developing lower body strength, core strength, but also that ability to rotate and have strength there. So, a side angle would be really good for that and then directly working on the rotation, but in a more supported way, you could be doing a reclined twist. So you could lie down on your back, you could bring your arms out to a T, and then you just bring your legs to one side or the other side. And that can feel really nice. If you were spending a lot of time looking in one direction, you would twist in the opposite direction when you actually do that twist. So that's going to help kind of counter that whatever tightness from left to right that existed. So, and
I'm
that could be
glad you
something that
said
you,
that. I'm really glad
yeah,
you said that because someone driving themselves, a lot of times we use our cars as blinds, right? So if someone's driving, they're always rotating left, at least if they're listening here in the US, and I have people listening in other countries where they drive on the wrong side of the road. I'm just kidding all the Aussies and English guys, Brits, right? So that means they're always twisting to the left. And what you're saying, we would often think, well, I need to twist to the left more, but to actually counteract that, what you're saying is, no, we need to make sure we're twisting right as well.
yeah. I mean, you need to be able to do both,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So, Dean, let's talk about, okay, now they've listened to it. They understand the benefit of not just for photography, but for life. Guys, and if you want to know like how serious I am, I don't remember how long ago it was, maybe a year or so. Dean had a limited time offer to be a lifetime member, and I'd already had a subscription going. And I mean, I joined as soon as I got the email. I'm like, oh, heck yeah. That's how big a believer I am. So Dean has not gifted me a membership. Dean has not asked for anything. He just graciously gave of his time to be with us today. So I was a member. I then became a lifetime member. I bought all the gear back behind me. Dean's, none of this has been in exchange for this video. I promise you, as you guys know and can tell from all my other videos. So Dean, you have a YouTube channel where they can see some of your stuff for free, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And so if they want to get a little more familiar with it, that's a good place to start. Is that the best place for them to start, you think?
Yeah, I think that's the best place to start. Most people know if this is something they're going to want to keep doing after they watch one video. So, if you like what Lee is saying, if you trust his expertise here, um, and if you somewhat like me, you don't have to love me. If you somewhat like me, and you go over to go over to the YouTube channel, you try out one workout, you see if it's like, oh, this is nice, and you might watch it and be like, oh yeah, these cues are helpful, telling me what to do with my body. Oh, I didn't know about that part of the pose. Oh, I should be feeling this in this part of my body. That's cool. Or you might do it and be like, this is driving me crazy. There's way too much talking, and then I hate this and I won't do it. So you'll know usually within, the first 10 minutes if this is something that you're going to want to do, or if it's something that you're like, nah, I gotta go find another workout solution. So yeah, YouTube's a great place to start.
Okay. And then if they watch some YouTube and they go, oh man, I really like this. I really want to find, more structured programs. I want to be able to schedule my workouts through the app on my
Hmm.
phone. I want to be able to, AirPlay to my TV or whatever for the workouts. On your website, they can register. What kind of membership opportunities do you have right now? What kind of options?
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. We do annual or monthly. Annual, you get a big discount. If you do annual, you get about 6 months free versus going month to month. So, and we just know that people are actually more consistent with the workouts and they just get better results when they go annual. So, I encourage people to go annual. Um, and yeah, so that's
Your
how it
two
works. And
options.
but there's yeah, but both things are going to get you the same things. Programs, workouts. We've got over 40 programs, over 500 workouts. There's hundreds of videos, wellness videos, tutorial videos. Um, there's a whole getting started series to help you understand how to be consistent with the workouts and how to get the best results. Also anticipate these frustrations that you're probably going to experience and speak to those as you're going through them. The program progression to guide you from one program to the next. There's our Facebook group, which is, we have this really awesome supportive community of men who are doing these workouts together. Um, and yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff that I can't put into a single short pitch, but
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
posture workouts, there's recovery workouts, there's sciatic pain workouts, there's back pain workouts, knee pain, shoulder pain, there's morning workouts, evening workouts, better sleep, stress relief, breathing, anxiety and depression work. I mean, there's everything. There's
Yeah. You've got a
made a
lot.
lot of videos.
And the nice thing, guys, too, and I meant to mention this earlier. Every program has an intro video that's going to help prepare expectations. And then at the
Hmm.
end of a program, he's got videos that say, okay, now you might consider this program next. So for those of us
Hmm.
that never did yoga, it can feel a little intimidating. I can't think of a single thing that I go, I kind of wish Dean would have provided this information. He tells you at the beginning of videos what equipment you're going to need. Okay, here's what to expect in this workout. And I assure you, no matter how heavy you are, no matter how out of shape you think you are, you can do his beginner programs. No, you're not gonna hop in and do the one for athletes, but he has programs for everybody. I assure you, if I can do it, you can do it. So, I don't know if you guys realize how busy this guy is. So for him to take time out to come and talk to us, has photographers. So do me a favor, guys. You guys know that my videos are all about being honest, straightforward. I don't come in here and blow air up your skirt. I talk to you about reality, whether it be photography or in this case, a workout program designed to make your photography better. Do me a favor, go out and give Dean's YouTube videos a view. Get you a mat. You can do it with all these other things he said, but I'm telling you, it's like a lot of times with photography gear, you guys go out and you buy something cheap. And then later, you're like, well, hell, if I'd have just bought a better tripod, as Lee's mentioned many times, I'd have saved money in the long run and I'd have been less frustrated. And whether you get Dean's mat or somebody else's, hey, I love his gear. I have it. You can see it behind me. I really would encourage you, start it correctly, be committed. Said as soon as I wake up, first thing I do, I come in here, I unroll my yoga mat. I don't leave it out because unrolling it is a part of my habit. I get everything set. I set it to AirPlay to my TV. I get my water ready. And it's how I start my day. No matter how important or pressing emails or videos or other things are, it's how I start my day. And I did the beginners program 7 days a week. I just y'all know I'm a pretty intense guy to begin with. But Dean says, you can be flexible on that as well. And I really want to encourage you, go watch his YouTube videos, hop over to Manflow Yoga. I'm a part of his advanced program called Enhance, where it's a little bit more per month, but it's a bunch of accountability, people communicating, sharing. Dean has tremendous videos on, every month there's different topics, every week there's different topics. He has other experts come in. I mean, there's really not much missing in Manflow Yoga. He'll help you with your mental health, he'll help you with your physical health. So, Dean, I need you to know it's truly from my heart. You've taken a big chunk of your afternoon today, and I really appreciate you coming and talking to us. Because as you can see, my YouTube channel, yes, it's about photography, but I try to be as encompassing as possible on all the different dimensions. So I'm going to give you a chance. Anything I didn't ask, anything you didn't get to talk to that you go, I really feel like this would be an important thing to bring up.
You've said so much about it. I don't know what else I can add to
Good.
it
Okay. Good.
other
Good.
than, just the there's so many aspects of this that help carry over into your everyday life that,
Mhm.
if you're thinking about it just from a physical fitness perspective, it's not. Because the more time that you spend focusing on your body, focusing on your breath, the more able you are better able to respond to stress in everyday life outside of yoga. When you can do some breathing, some body awareness, it sets you up to have a better day where you have more focus, you're more calm, but at the same time, you have more energy. It's this weird paradox of, of just of feeling more energetic, but also more calm and focused at the same time. So this goes far beyond just a workout, and it really goes into something that can transform the way that you live your life in a good way. So
That's a good way to wrap that up. Guys, listen, I've got some spaces on my January 2025 Zimbabwe Zambia green season photography workshop. I've still got some space on some 2025 OM system only. Right now, if you contact me and told me you heard it through this, I'll give you $300 off Grand Teton in winter coming up the first week of December. I'm going to open up a second session of my OM system mentorship program. I'll do it with as few as 5 people. So hop over to the Wildside Nature Tours website, hop over to LeroyPhotography.com. Thank you so much for being a part of my online community. Dean, again, thank you so much for giving us some time of your day. And I guarantee, you know what the reality is, if only 5 people did this, I know 5 people will become better photographers for doing it. So thank you again, sir. Guys, go out there, capture some visually compelling images, and we'll see you next week.